Good morning and welcome to another episode of Logistics with Purpose. I am thrilled to be here with an amazing guest and of course, as always, or usual, Kristi. How are you doing today?
I'm good. This is really fun to have a guest like live in person with you. Wow, this is something we haven't done in a long time, so I'm really excited for you, and I can feel the energy from my side remotely as well. So, this is going to be a lot of fun, and yeah, it's going to be a good interview. You've been talking this guest up, so I'm excited to learn more about him. So, without further ado, we have Jordi Ricart, co-founder of We Are Curated, partner at the Luxury Concierge Network, and a member of YPO, which is the Young Presidents Organization. Jordi, how are you? Welcome.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yes, we are delighted you could join us. Delighted even more that the two of you are together in Miami and able to do this. Enrique is such an extrovert, so he's delighted to not be on his own.
I gotta say for the audience that we've never done this before, or at least not, after the pandemic, and it just feels so
Yeah.
much different. I'm nervous and excited, and it's just going to be a fun interview, but it just feels so much better when you're actually looking
Of
at the other
course.
person eye to eye, and when you're in the same room.
The
So
energy is completely
I'm
different,
glad I'm
right?
glad that we
Yeah.
I'm glad that we could do this, and I'm glad that we're doing it with you. So
Thank you so
thanks.
much.
Yes, it's fabulous. I'm loving the energy, and I will, as an introvert, feed off of it by myself over here. Jordy, so to start us off, we're going to ask you just a couple of quick questions and then we'll jump into the meat of our interview, but just say whatever it is, the first thing that comes to your mind. So we'll start off, what's your favorite hobby?
I love sailing.
Sailing.
Yes.
Okay. All
Started
right.
sailing when I was 6 years old, and I love that's my passion.
Wow. That's very cool. All right. And what is the last book that you read?
I read many books. I read like 3 or 4 books a month. It's not the last one that I read, but it's the next
Okay.
one I'm gonna read because I read every year in January. That it's called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer.
Okay. I've never even heard of that one, so we'll have to talk
So
more
it's
about
a
that.
must. It's a must for everybody.
Okay. And we'll get a little bit more into this later, but what are your top three favorite cars?
My top three favorite cars. So it's funny, but I'm actually not a car guy, even
Okay.
though I'm partnering in a car company, okay, one of the leading companies in vintage supercars. But I personally own a Porsche 996 Turbo. I had a picture of this Porsche when I was studying at the university, and I said,
Ah,
I'm gonna have it. So when we took our first distribution from the company, I bought it. So
I
I
love
would say
that.
that that's my favorite car.
I love that. Making a dream come true. How cool. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for jumping in on those questions with us.
Well, Jordy, there's not part of the questions that we had before, but your favorite soccer team.
Oh, okay.
You know that
I
answer.
just wanted
Of
to get
course.
There's only one, right?
there's
Football Club Barcelona.
there's only one club, Barcelona. Just wanted to get it out there. So probably we're gonna lose a lot of the Real Madrid fans for the podcast, but no, thank you for allowing us to be here. Thank you for actually opening up. You and I had the opportunity to meet at the Conscious Capitalism, and I've gotten to know you and admire what you've done. So I'm thrilled to actually share some of these with our audience. Before we jump into your career, tell us a little bit more about you when you were little, your background, when you grew up, your childhood.
So yeah, so I'm from Barcelona, from Spain. Okay, I grew up there. My dad was a banker, so we moved around a lot. My dad was opening branches for different banks, and nothing. Then I studied law, studied business. I had the opportunity to work on different industries. I always said to myself that until I was 30, I didn't want to make money. I just wanted to learn. So I started working at the jewelry industry. During the university, I was working in an accounting firm, then in the jewelry industry, then I went to the textile industry, food industry, and then years later, I ended up coming to Miami.
Is there anything that you remember from that time, something that your parents or an uncle or someone that you in your family, something that was relevant to you to shape who you are now?
Well, on a personal level, like my dad and my mom, like they always gave, and my grandfather, my grandparents, they always gave me the best values, like personally, like to be a good person, treat everybody in a fair way. And on my professional life, I tell the story, I had the opportunity to work in this company where I grew so much, I'm super thankful for that experience. But I also learned what I didn't want to have in my company the day that I had a company. You know, my boss was like super tough on me. He was tough on the people that I was overseeing. He actually made me cry many times as
No
a
way,
25-year-old guy. Yes,
Wow.
so
very
yes,
stressful kind of
it
job,
was,
right?
yeah, it was stressful. But like it was an amazing learning experience. And I am who I am today because of that experience as well, because like coming from that, then when you see, and we're gonna talk about this later, but when you see something so different from that, it's like you embrace it more, even more.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and so why I'm curious first of all, how did you pick the different industries? Were all of those just ones that you had initial interest in, or where you felt like you could
So
learn the most, or how did you decide?
yeah, so while I was studying, I was working in an accounting firm, no? And then, in the last 2 years of university, I started 2 degrees at the same time, no? So instead of like studying for like 4 or 5 years, I studied for like 7 years. And the last 2 years of university, I was like, I want to work, I want to make some money and work and learn. So I decided to go so I was supposed to be in the university for 6 years. I decided to be there for 7 years, and the last two start getting some experience. And I had the opportunity to join this jewelry company. They were one of the leaders in Europe. They didn't have their own brand, but they were manufacturing in India. They had like 300 employees first, and they had 600 employees when they opened another factory, and they were manufacturing for all the big brands in Europe, no? So that I started as an assistant to the general manager, supporting him. And once I graduated, I became the operations manager. So I was managing all the operations in that company. I was
Wow.
super young, but I had a lot of responsibility. I was overseeing a lot of people. Imagine everything that we were doing was gold and diamonds.
Wow, yeah.
Yes, only gold and that high-end jewelry. And everything was manufactured in India. So managing that process, making sure that all the goods were coming to Europe, shipping it to all the distributors that we had. It was actually super cool. I learned a lot, but it was a tough experience.
So business-wise, you learned a lot. It was a good
Yeah,
business, well-functioning company as well. I'm guessing it was very profitable. Culture, not as good as you would have liked.
exactly.
So I'll start asking you a little bit about like the business side of things. What are the top three things that you think they made great, that made them a good, profitable company? And then I'll ask you, well, what is the culture? What was the culture? A couple of things that you could have been better.
It was so what they were doing good. It was the I think it was like, so these guys, okay, they didn't start making jewelry. They started like buying and selling diamonds. Okay. They were wholesalers of diamonds. And then what they realized is that they had to add value, because like
Right.
going to buy a diamond and then
Yeah,
sell it.
trading is not
Exactly.
the
Everybody could do it. Everybody started being able to go to the market and buying diamonds. So then it's like, we need to add value. And that's why they decided to start manufacturing, buying the diamonds at the prices that they were buying, and then manufacturing. So they were able to put together this amazing team in India, where they were able to like produce super high-end quality jewelry and at an amazing price. So all the big brands in Europe, one of them, our major like client, it was Toast. I'm not sure if you know
yeah.
Toast in Spain is massive. It's a company from Spain. So they were producing 100 at the time, 100% of the production of gold and diamonds for
Oh
Toast, for
wow.
example. Yeah. So that's something that they were doing amazing, like they had an amazing design team. We were designing for helping, with the design for all these companies. It was fast. Okay. Somebody was design, we were getting a design, we were adjusting it, boom, in like 2, 3 weeks or in a week, maybe, or 2 weeks, they had already a sample, and
Wow.
then approved, boom, in like in 2, 3 weeks, they
It's
had
already
a
being
product.
sold.
So that was amazing being in India, producing it in India with the cost in India. You were getting product almost as fast as producing it in Europe. So that was brilliant. Yeah. The only thing it was that, no, like there was a lot of pressure, like the culture, it was not the right one. People were talking shit, the employees, even, there were groups, people were talking shit about each other. There was a
All
lot of
right. A
pressure.
lot of backstabbing.
Exactly. But for me, that was normal. When that's your
Well, you
first
didn't
job,
know
you
any
don't know
better,
anything
right?
else.
Yeah.
That's normal. So that's
You
business.
think that's the way that
You
businesses
have your
conducted.
personal life where you are one, it's one way, and then business wise is that. The other thing, like my boss used to make me push, like the vendors like crazy, to the point that if they were not making money, he was so happy. So I was proud to make him happy, like they were paying as little as they could to the employees, and even myself, So but that was business. At the end of the day,
Right.
what you learn in university is that capitalism and and business is all about maximization of profits. And that's what they were doing. They were maximizing profits, and that's how you make money in a business. And that's what I learned and what I thought until, like I
And
can
we'll
say
get
exactly.
into the second part of that
Exactly.
comment.
Until a turning point. Well, let me ask you first. So we talked about you're from Barcelona. I love Barcelona. So fun fact, Barcelona was actually my first solo international trip. So I love Barcelona. I was able to explore on my own. It's a beautiful city. I had a lot of fun since high school. I had wanted to go there. So that was my first international solo trip. And it was a terrific, beautiful city. You went to university there, you're from there. So we've talked a lot about business, but of course, there are many different paths that you could have taken. So did you know, was it influence from your dad, or how did you know you wanted to go into business?
Since I was a little child, I knew that I wanted to be in business. I don't know.
Okay.
It was just something that I knew it. I loved business. I remember like when I was like 12 or 13 years old, I asked my dad to if we could invest in the stock market. So he opened a little account for me.
Oh, you told him, but he was the banker.
I know. So, and he was so excited. So even like, like with three friends from my school, I think we invested, it was in pesetas, but whatever, like in euros, maybe it was like 25 euros each. So we
Yeah.
had 75 euros and we were
That's
like
awesome.
buying and, trading. My dad was doing it for us. And then we were like doing there was not even Excel. So we were,
Right.
on a piece of paper when we were analyzing how much money we were making.
That is
So, so I always loved like this business, no? And when I was in school, I was always doing business. One of my first businesses, profitable businesses. I shouldn't share this, but I'll share it. So
we can edit later.
exactly. At some point, okay, my dad was moved to Andorra. Okay, Andorra is a little country between Spain and France, and there's a big financial industry. So he was one of the managers in one of the banks, and then I moved down to go to university. So in Andorra, like everything is tax free. So I used to buy tobacco, okay, but like nobody knew it. My dad didn't know it, but I used to bring my bags full of clothes underneath, like packs of tobacco, go back to Barcelona. And in the university, there was a guy, okay, that was selling the newspapers, gums, and things like that. And I was selling him the tobacco.
Oh, you actually weren't selling it to the
No, I was selling it to the guy.
distributor.
Exactly. And the guy was selling it to the students.
Wow.
So everybody was going there to buy the tobacco from Andorra, and I was the one selling
But
it.
you were the supplier.
Yes.
Wow.
That explains so much about
Yes,
your
it does.
business. No, this is great.
That's amazing. Yes, sounds like you always had, I love that you clearly knew what you were going to do and found creative ways to do it for sure. Well, you and Enrique are sitting there in your We Are Curated headquarters, your office. You are also recognized as a respected and knowledgeable person in your niche. So first of all, tell us about We Are Curated, what is the origin story and what makes it stand out?
So we're created right now. Okay, what we do is we buy and sell vintage supercars. We focus on cars, European cars from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
Okay.
We do mostly Ferrari and Lamborghini. In terms of Lamborghini, we're the leading company worldwide right now. We buy and sell more vintage Lamborghinis than anybody in the world. And then we have a restoration facility where we do like mechanical work and we do some restorations. And then when we do full restorations, we do the projects in Europe. We have amazing partners over there. Then right now we have 7 or 8 cars going through a full restoration in Europe.
Wow.
So, and then we have a storage facility as well. So that's all we do. We do a lot online. That's mostly how we met people. Our clients are not from Miami. Happens that we are in Miami, but last year we sold a little bit over 130, 140 cars. Like 2 cars, I think, were sold in Miami.
Oh, really?
Our market is global. Like when what we buy is like the best of the best. So when you buy a Lamborghini Diablo GT, they only made 80 for the world, 80. So once you have one for sale, the buyer could be in Japan, could be in UK, could be in Mexico, could be anywhere. So that's what we do. Like what we do is like a Van Gogh, this amazing,
like an art dealer almost, right?
It's
basically the same
it's the same thing. We're dealing with like 15 models, I would say 15, 20 models only. And we specialize on those, and that's it. Everything limited production cars, limited less than 10,000 miles, just the best of the best. Not a lot of quantity. We sell a little bit over 100 cars a year, but they are just perfect.
And it's a really good business kind of lesson as well, right? You're just very focused.
Yeah.
You don't actually get distracted because there's
No.
so many amazing supercars out there that you could
Exactly.
easily say, well, let's start doing this, this, and that. And you're like, no, we're just focusing on this,
what
and
we
we're
do-
going to be the
so-
best at what we do.
Exactly. So the person that knows about cars in our business is my business partner. No, I focus more on the managing the company, the operations, finance, and people. And John, his dad was a mechanic, his grandfather was a mechanic. He grew up around these cars. So what he says, it's like we need to focus on what I know, and we just focus on what he
That's
knows.
it.
That's it. That's
No,
it.
and we'll tag the video to the interview that you with John have, because that's a really good video. We'll add it here. So, but before we get a little bit more into that side of the business, tell us about how it started. You were saying that after Barcelona, you decided to come to Miami, and then what happened? Because I think that the way that this whole thing kind of was brought together is really inspiring.
So my best friend in Spain, okay, Gerard, he had a company in Miami. It was a car club. It was like a car rental agency, but instead of renting for daily, rentals, it was like a membership program. So you were paying 20, 30, or $50,000. It was 3 types of membership, and then you were getting access to vehicles. So imagine like a Mexican person or one of your family members that comes to Miami, has an apartment in Miami, and instead of having a Lamborghini sitting in the garage, that when he comes, it's not starting, it's not working, or the tires are flat. Now he sends me a message, says, Jordi, send me the Ferrari. Jordi, send me the Lamborghini. Jordi, I have all the family. Send me the Cadillac Escalade. So that's what we were doing. It was a membership program. So my friend's company was not working. He asked me to come here to help him. I came here, and after 7 months, I ended up selling that company to Lullaby. And Lullaby was the largest car rental agency in Miami, exotic car rental agency in Miami. And John was the president of the company. John was the founder. So that's how John and I got to know each other. And so then we had the daily rentals, and now we had the Lullaby Members Club. We had the membership program, and I was leading that membership program. At Lullaby, at that time, like they had a new investor, they had a lot of money. So I saw like money flying out of the window. It was just crazy. So I didn't see the finances of the company because I was just like the GM of the membership program. But at some point I approached John. I'm like, John, brother, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm sure that this company is losing money. Because I see you giving checks to everybody and not saying no to anything. So, and then he looked at me, he's like, yeah, we're actually losing money. And then I told him, like, hey, I've been observing you for like 6, 7 months. Like, you're an amazing marketing person. You know a lot about cars. You are incredible with VIPs and sales. Like, what are you doing today? Like, and we got a big piece of paper, a Post-it, and he started writing down, and he wrote like 20 things. And then I asked him, what do you like doing from this? And it was like 4 things, what I told you.
Right.
So I'm like, the rest of the things, that's what I love doing. And that's what I'm good at. Like, why don't you allow me to do this? And then we just go to grow this business. So that company, then when he allowed me to do that, and I got into the financials.
And that's when you officially partnered together.
When we started working together, exactly. So when he allowed me to start like doing that, I looked at the financials. The company that year was about to lose $100,000.
Wow.
So imagine. So I took we started working as a team, the two of us. I started just pushing. I started becoming my old boss, basically.
Well, that's all you knew. That's
Exactly.
how you thought business was conducted.
Exactly. So if
you were an ass back then.
I was an asshole. Yes. I'm not proud of what I did.
Well, but you're just following the school that you were.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, my personal life, I was the best friend. You could always count on me.
He is a very nice guy.
Like I was like, what my dad and mom, they told me on the business side, I started pushing my employees like crazy. I think I had like 10 or 11 employees going through that company that year. I was firing people like nonstop. And it's sad to say, but I was proud of it. It was like, oh, they have an issue, and then on the other side, I was pushing our vendors. I was trying to like get as much money as possible from our clients. So we were just pushing. So if you look at the numbers, a year later, the company made $80,000. So we went from losing 800,000 to making 80K. So based on numbers, it was fantastic. But at that time, I was miserable. My employees were miserable. My business partner, John, was afraid of me. Like, it was a disaster. If you asked me if I was happy, I was not happy at all. I was super unhappy.
Not sustainable.
No. Actually, I'll tell you something. So at some point, I started feeling something in my body. So I was even diagnosed with MS, sclerosis multiple.
Oh,
Yes, and John, he had I don't know how, like he had an issue that his eye like fell.
So the stress was really
from stress,
killing you.
it was
Literally.
killing
wow.
both of us. Yeah, he had Bell's palsy. Yes, Bell's
Wow.
palsy. So both of us. So you can imagine how much stress we had in that moment.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like at that time when the company started making money. Okay, it was great. We were happy. We were more
And you guys
relaxed.
weren't paying yourselves at the time. It wasn't.
At that time, yes, okay, because the company was making money. But what happened is that 70% of our clients were from Brazil. At that time, Brazilians were coming to Miami, like it was incredible. They were spending money like nobody. So in 2014-15, Brazil gets into a deep recession. Okay, and in 3 months, like 3 months, okay, the peso, I think it's peso, no, reais. The reais dollar changed completely, uh, and they
Wow.
disappeared. Nobody was coming. So 70% of our business
Your business was gone?
Gone in 3 months. But
Wow.
but you have to pay your employees, you have to pay your insurance, you have to pay your showroom, you have to pay the cars, because if not, there's no business. So what do? John and I, we
And
stopped.
you cannot keep squeezing people because you're
No,
we're pretty lean.
we were done. So John and I, we stopped taking a salary. I was not even a partner in the company, but we stopped taking a salary for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I'm not a rich person. I don't come like my dad just was a banker, but like middle class family. John, the same thing. His dad was a mechanic. So at some point, like John even had to pawn his Rolex to pay his rent.
Wow.
And at some point I had like $150 in my bank account. It was that bad. But in that period,
You told me you took even a picture of that to remember
I
the
did.
moment.
I did. Yes, because I remember being in the office, and I'm like, okay, my American dream is over. It's fine. It's been a year and a half or two. It's over. I'm going back to Spain. So I was thinking about calling my dad because I couldn't even afford to buy a flight ticket to go back to Spain.
Wow.
And I took a picture of my bank account, a screenshot, and I'm like, I don't want to forget at this moment. Like that's because I imagine you studied 2 degrees. Okay, you start working so hard even before finishing university. You come to the United States, and I felt like a massive failure. Like I failed. But what's cool in this period of time, no, I saw John buying like a cheap Ferrari, like a $40,000 for old Ferrari, and I thought that he was crazy. And I told him like, John,
We don't have money. What are you
exactly.
doing?
And the thing is, like, he didn't have $40,000. He got a lease. And the thing is that he didn't even have the 10%, the $4,000 for the lease. He had $2,000. So he puts $2,000. He asks his mom for $2,000.
No way.
Yes. And then I see him that he starts working himself on the car, cleaning it, doing these things. He's like, oh no, I'm gonna sell it, I'm gonna make money. I'm like, John, like next month, we're not gonna take a salary. How are you going to pay for your apartment? Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna sell this car, I'm gonna make money. And the guy goes, and in like 30, 40 days, he sells it and makes $20,000.
Well, and he actually fixed it himself because that's
Yeah.
what he really loved to do, and that
Yes.
was his
And
passion.
he makes $20,000. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. Because when you have like nothing in your bank account, 20K is a
Yeah.
fortune.
It is a fortune.
So I saw him and I'm like, can you do this again? And he's like, I have a Lamborghini Countach that I believe that I can buy for 200 and I can sell it for $300,000. But I don't have the money. I'm like,
Right.
oh, let me do something. So I called my best friend in Spain, Gerard. I'm like, Gerard, would you lend me $200,000? They're like, for what? I'm like, for a Lamborghini Countach.
Right.
That's a good friend.
Are you
Guys in
crazy?
Miami living the life and wants a better car.
Are you crazy? I'm like, just trust me. I'm like, I trust John. I believe in John. So my friend sends me $200,000. We do a 70-30 split with Gerard, 70 for him and 30 for us. And like nothing, like 60 days later, I'm calling Gerard and I'm telling him that I have $90,000 for him.
No way.
Profit. So he's like, what? I send you 200 and you have 90K profit? And I'm like, yeah, where do I send the money? He's like, don't send it back. Keep doing it. So that in
Wow.
2014, that John and I, we did like five.
Which is a completely different business model to what you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were renting cars.
Leasing, and
Yeah.
now it became.
But the thing is like that 15%
Fixed and-
each, like the 30% that John and I were making, we were buying $50,000 to $150,000 cars. No,
Right.
Yeah.
like cheap.
Well, that's what you could have afforded.
And that's what we had, the money from Gerard. No, we had like $300,000 to play with. So with that, John and I were making $5,000 here, $10,000 there, $5,000 here, and we were surviving. We were paying our apartment, we were paying our things, surviving.
You still had a team back then, or you had to let most of the team
no,
go?
No.
We
The thing is,
still
like,
survived. Everyone
exactly.
survived.
John and I, what was happening? So every month I was telling John, this is the last month. I had $15,000 cash in the safe of the company that John didn't even know. Only Anna, our operations manager, and I knew. They were safe there, and that was to pay part of the payroll the last month for the employees. And I always kept it there to make sure that
The
everybody
last month they
that
will be
yes,
taken
that
care of.
everybody was going to be taken care of at least 1 month.
And for you in your mind, you're like, that's it, one more month and we're gonna close.
Yes, and
One more
I'm
month and we're
getting
gonna
the
close.
cash, paying employees, and we're
That's it.
closing.
What
But
about you?
every month something was happening. Towards the end of the month, boom, a big group was coming. They were renting 6 or 7 cars, and we were getting money, and we were able to pay the rent, we were able to pay the cars, we were able to pay employees. Okay, another month. And every month a miracle was happening. So we kept the company alive. I don't know how. John and I were not getting paid, but we were surviving from those little deals. Until one day there's no deals, there's nothing, and I don't have $1. I have to pay my immigration attorney. She's calling me. I don't have the money to pay her, and then I have to pay my rent. If not, they're
Right.
gonna get me out.
Right.
So that's a night that but that day in the morning, John comes and he's like, I told him like, John, I'm gonna go back to Spain.
That's
He's
it.
like, no, you're not going anywhere. We're gonna become rich. I'm like, what? And John is somebody who lives in another reality. Okay, John is like an eternal optimistic. And in that time, I was like the opposite. Okay, I was like super pessimistic. So he says, like, look, and he shows me like a paper, a bill of sales signed for a Lamborghini Miura S. And I didn't know.
Yeah, you're like, you didn't know about
No,
cars.
I didn't know, but it was $800,000. I didn't know that a car could be worth $800,000.
Right.
Imagine.
Right.
So he's like, I'm
So
gonna
this is
buy.
the first time I'm hearing it.
Because I didn't know anything until I actually met him too.
So he's like, we're gonna buy this car for $800,000 and we're gonna sell it for 1.1. And I'm like,
Wow.
you are out of your mind. You're crazy.
But you guys had no money, right? And he was
I'm
super
like,
excited about buying the car.
Exactly. He's like, I know I can sell it for
I
1.1.
like
And
it.
I'm like, okay, and how are we gonna get the money? He's like, oh, you're gonna raise it. I'm like, me? I'm like, I can't raise $800,000 in like 3 weeks for that $800,000 car that I don't even know what it looks like. And he was showing me pictures of the car. And if you look at the picture of that car, it was in a barn full of dust. I don't think that
We'll add some pictures
the
for this interview.
wheels were like, I think the wheels were
It
off
looked
the car. I'm like,
it was red.
I'm like, yeah, it was red.
That's the only thing I noticed.
It's worth like $800,000. So, but and then we had to put a $50,000 deposit that same week, and we didn't even have 50K. So that's it for me.
So for you, like, it's not gonna happen.
gonna happen.
The guy's just crazy. He's lost it.
Exactly. So that evening, I'm at the office. Everybody left, and we had a beautiful showroom. It was like all the cars, and then art, pop-up art on the wall. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the art, and I'm like, wow, like my American dream is over. It's been a year and a half or two, whatever.
That's the night when you took
Yeah,
the picture of.
Exactly. I'll call my dad. I'm gonna call my dad tomorrow and ask him to buy me a flight ticket. Hey, at that night, the phone is ringing, and it's Alan. You know Alan. So.
Give us, and before you get into that story, which is very heartwarming. So who's Alan? For people that don't know who Alan is, and how did you meet the guy, and what does he do?
So the day that Alan was calling me was September 2015. Okay, September. In December, okay, the previous December, so December 2014, Lulavi, the car rental agency, we threw up like an amazing Art Basel event. And it was a pop-up party.
We gotta tag that onto the.
And he was painting. He was throwing paint on one of our vehicles. Okay, a Maserati.
I saw the video. The video is pretty cool.
So Maserati designed by Pininfarina that night. Then the next morning, we're at the office. The showroom was destroyed. Imagine 1,000 people walking on paint. Okay, so the bathrooms were destroyed, the walls, it was destroyed. So this Alan, this short guy, flip-flops, shorts, opens the door and walks in. It's like, this is sick, like screaming like an animal. I'm like, who's this guy? He comes, he gives me like a massive hug. He gives a hug to John, and I was not used to getting hugs from people that I didn't know. So I was like shocked. And he was just like the nicest person. We didn't know who he was. He gives us his business card, and it was a parking ticket. And then he had his name there. So whatever, we spoke a little bit, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna be back in at the end of December for the holidays. Why don't we have lunch together? Perfect.
Sure.
So at the end of December, he calls us, and we go have lunch with him and his family. From that day, every 2-3 nights, he was calling me and John. I was spending like 2 or 3 hours on the phone. Like, so we were talking with him like at least 2 to 3 times a week for 2 to 3 hours every time. And he started mentoring us. It was not a business thing. He was just like mentoring us. So Alan, you were asking me who's Alan. Alan is the son of 2 Holocaust survivors. Okay, dad and mom come to the United States with nothing. The dad, because of the situation that he lived back in Europe, he becomes super spiritual and he studies and he becomes a rabbi in the United States. So they are not a rich family. They're like a super middle class poor family. Alan becomes a ballet parker, so he starts parking cars. And from parking cars, okay, with his 3 best friends, they start all together parking cars. So with his 3 best friends, they build the largest parking company in the United States with 15,000 employees and 2 billion in revenue. And when
Which
you
is the LAC parking. And we'll actually save that story for another day because I would like to have Alan, maybe
That would
you and I could interview him at
that
some
would be
point.
fantastic.
So, but that's who Alan is.
Wow.
At this point, he's a good friend, he's a mentor, and then
Exactly.
take us back to 2015.
Exactly.
You're at your office, you're
Exactly.
thinking this is over, and the phone rings.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So Alan had been mentoring us that time, no, and he had been, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but he had been giving us like teaching us another way to do business that it was so different from what I was used to, no? Because when I used to ask Alan, how did you do that? You didn't even
Right.
study and you built this massive company. And he always used to tell me, when you help people from your heart unconditionally, okay, without expecting anything in exchange, everything comes 10 times back. So forget about money and focus on helping people. He was telling me this while I was in Lulavi. Yeah, it was beautiful. I was writing it down. I was writing my notes, but it didn't connect with me. It was so difficult. I didn't believe that was possible. But that day, Alan, the phone is ringing, and it was Alan, and he lives in Connecticut. He doesn't live in Miami. So I was shocked. He's like, "Oh, I'm in Miami. There was a parking convention in Miami. Why don't we go to have dinner together?" So I called John. We go have dinner, and Alan is asking us about the business, and we tell him like, "It's a disaster. We're shutting down. We're shutting down this month." It was September 2nd the day. So at the end of September, the business is going to be closed. And I told him, like, I'm calling my dad tomorrow and I'm going to ask him to buy me a flight ticket because I cannot afford my rent. So John goes like, nah, Jordi is crazy. We're going to be rich. And I'm like, oh my God, here he goes.
Yeah.
So John is like, no, I just signed a bill of sale for $800,000 and I'm going to, for Lamborghini Miura, and I'm going to sell it for 1.1. And Alan is like, what? I was like, where are you going to get the money from? And he's like, oh, Jordi's going to raise the money. And I'm like, I couldn't even look at Alan's eyes at that time. So I'm like, Alan, don't even listen to him, please. So he's like, but do you have the money? I'm like, no, obviously no. And I told him, and we have to put a $50,000 deposit this week. And then we need to raise $750 in 2 weeks. So Alan's like, you guys are crazy, but I love it. And he asked John, like,
I love
do
it.
you really believe that you can sell this car for 1.1? And he's like, yes. So he grabs his backpack. He pulls out his checkbook and he starts writing something. So he looks at me, he's like, you're the money guy, right? I'm like, yes. So he's like, tomorrow, okay, you're gonna take this money, you're gonna put a deposit tomorrow, the $50,000, and then you're gonna raise the 750. John is gonna buy the car and he's gonna sell it for 1.1. And I'm like, Alan, I cannot accept this money. I'm sorry. Like, I cannot take $50,000 from you. You're going to lose your money. This is a non-refundable deposit. So basically what he did, okay, he looked at me and he's like, I believe in you. You can do it. And I'm like, I can't, and you're going to lose your money. So we're not going to be able to pay you back. And he's like, did you read the check? And I'm like, yes. So $50,000. And he's, no, read it better. So I read the check and it said paid forward. There was in the memo, there was a little note that said paid forward. He said, I don't want you to pay me back. I want you to pay it forward. When you have the opportunity to help someone, you just do it. So I want you to do what I did for you today, for your clients, your employees, your vendors, and anybody you can. So that was the message. I took the check, obviously. I raised the money. I couldn't fail. If it wasn't for Alan, I would have never raised the money. But I did it. I don't think I did it for me.
Well, he believed in you more than you guys believed in yourself. Well, John has always been an optimist and positive thinker, but he believed in you more than you believed in yourself.
100%. So I raised the money,
which is amazing.
John bought it, and we sold it for $1,240,000.
Isn't that crazy?
That is wild, especially when, so many questions. But thing about that is too, like I wonder too, like, did you have, in the US we call it imposter syndrome, because you have this picture of $150 in your paycheck. You're just given this money. You're about to take the step forward. Somebody believes in you, but at that point, did you like, okay, let me just say a prayer and hope this works? Or did you like, okay, now I have the confidence, let me do it?
I don't even remember. I don't know. Like there were so many emotions. Imagine you're
Yeah.
broke.
It's a
Okay, you
while.
don't know how you're gonna pay your rent. Your
Yeah.
immigration attorney is asking you for money to be able to continue the process. If not, you're gonna be illegal in the United States. So there were so many things, but then there's this gentleman that believes in me and gives
Yeah.
me $50,000. That $50,000, it was like, oh my, it's like
Yeah.
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I couldn't fail. I could
Right.
not fail him. I could not lose his money.
Yeah.
So I believe that I don't know what I thought, but I started just calling everybody I knew, everybody, and we ended up making it happen. But the beautiful thing about all of this, that was September, okay? Like we closed this deal, we sold the car like in 2 months. But so in December 2015, a year after meeting Alan, because we met Alan in December 2014 in Art Basel. So in Art Basel 2015, we were launching Curated, our company, together, Alan, John, and me, the three of us. And the beautiful thing about Curated
Wow.
is that the base of Curated, it was not to make money anymore. It was to pay forward. That's the only thing that Alan asked us, like to
Yeah.
create opportunities for people, to help people unconditionally. And before, with the other company, it was like, let's make money, what we were talking, about maximizing the benefits, the profits. And here we're just helping people. And the culture, the company, the people, it was so different. And the company exploded. Since day one, we started growing and growing and growing and growing. I couldn't believe it. That's why today, like now that I have proof, I'm like, I started like sharing it with people, because like when you do it this way, like amazing things happen.
Yeah.
Well, you not only did that, but put it in writing, and you're, of course, just launch your book, Paid Forward, Infusing Unconditional Love into Business. And of course, you and I met at the Conscious Capitalism, and there's a lot of different movements that actually say what you're saying or sharing with everyone right now, which is if you put the purpose first, then the money will come, right? I mean, it mostly, and you're a living proof that that is possible and actually change your life,
Yes.
if I may say so. So why writing the book? And can you elaborate a little bit more about integrating heart and how you do it? Because you have a very structured finance business background, which has been very helpful too. Now you changed it a little bit, tweak it, but you still, I'm guessing, have some of those elements and you just incorporate it into this purpose-driven vision, or how do you do all this?
So there's many aspects here. It's not only so on one side I was receiving all these messages and all this mentoring from Alan, no, and it was just beautiful. I was feeling it inside, but I didn't believe that it was possible. And not only that, but I didn't have the courage a lot of times to implement things that I wanted to implement in the company, because I was afraid that John or my employees were going to think that I was crazy. When I met you at Conscious Capitalism 2-3 years ago, I went to that event. And it was so empowering to see 400 CEOs.
It's a cool
Right? And I'm like, these guys are doing it. I can do it. I'm not crazy. There's more crazy people here. So when I saw that, okay, that on one side, and on the other side, I started like a deep personal growth as well. Okay, I through like a breathwork experience that I had an amazing experience that opened my heart, and then I wanted to know more. So I started like meditation, breathwork, hypnosis. I started working deep on myself. So through that personal journey, I ended up opening my heart. And then that's when I connected my brain, what Alan was giving me with my heart, and everything started making sense. And I had the courage to bring this to the company. So when I started keep applying, we were already a conscious company, but then I went from like 50 to 100. I brought Timothy Henry from Conscious Capitalist to Miami. We did a 3-day workshop. We defined our purpose. We defined our values. We defined our value creation proposal. No, then we started we brought like a different management system in the company with more accountability and managing the company based on values. And then the third thing that I created, I'm like, everything that I learned in my spiritual growth in the last 4 years, I'm like, let's bring it to the company. So I created a program where every Monday. And the idea is like to help my employees find their purpose and live their purpose within the organization. So what we do is every Monday we start all together and we meditate together, we do breath work. We have a professional coach that comes here, and we start at 28 employees all together with meditations, with breath work. We do meditation challenges. Right now, today, we're in a breath work challenge, a 1 month breath work challenge, for example. Every quarter,
I like that.
every quarter we do a company retreat, okay, where we work on all those things as well. No, and we go deep. And all of this doesn't have anything to do with the company. All of this is just
Right.
the employee to go deep into himself or herself and just grow as a person, as an individual, and find purpose. No, so we last year we had 4 employees coaching with a professional coach. This year we're gonna have 4 employees more coaching. So once we started doing those 3 things, defining the purpose, the values, the value creation, like managing the company in a different way, and then helping people grow and find purpose, the company exploded. Like exploded. We went from $18 million in revenue to 60 in 1 year, then
Wow.
75, 113, 151 this year. And I don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes I'm a little afraid because I'm like, what's going on? I never thought that could happen. So that's why, like, when you lead with your heart, that's what happens.
Well, you mentioned in the beginning, whenever you first started learning this from Alan, you were interested in adding it into the company, but you were afraid of that. So once you started doing that, how did your team respond?
So there's always pushback, okay? Change, people don't like change. And there's
Sure.
pushback. The beautiful thing is that once we define what our values were, okay, our core values for the company, then, okay, whoever didn't feel aligned with, I didn't have to fire anybody, but there were people that didn't feel aligned. It's like, this is not for me. They left. They started leaving the company. And now we're hiring people, okay? But we're hiring people based on values. And we're using this tool, the cultural index, and we make sure before we hire them that they fit our values. Because if you don't fit the values at Curated, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person.
No.
It means that you're gonna maybe fit the values of another company, but not ours. You can be a great person and not fit our values. So now we hire people based on our values. And we every quarter, each manager meets with the employee that manages, okay, and rates himself, okay, based on the 5 values, plus, minus, rates the employee, okay, and then the employee rates the manager and rates himself, and then they have a conversation, okay? They remove their ego, they become vulnerable, and they have an authentic conversation. So once, the first conversation that I had, it was difficult for me with my CFO.
Sure.
She was tough on me. Okay,
Right.
she gave me good feedback. No, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God,
I'm like, oh, really?
I need to change. Yeah.
Thought I was going to score higher. Yeah.
You can realize, we don't do a good job at looking at ourselves, but when you allow somebody to tell you what they see in you,
Oh,
is
yeah.
when you open your eyes.
Yes.
And that
Sure.
was, for me, was so helpful, that meeting with Katia, with our CFO. And then I use this as an example, and Katia's like, don't say it anymore. I'm like, no, but I love saying it, and I tell the employees and everybody, because I want all the employees to have the courage to tell their managers
Right.
what they feel about them, if there's something that they need to change. So if somebody doesn't have at least 3 pluses and 2 plus minuses, they don't belong to the organization. This person has 2 chances, whether he's a manager or is an employee. This person has 2 chances to change. If not, the person has
Then
to
it's just not the company for them. Again, it's not personal. It doesn't mean
It's not
that this is a
personal.
bad person or like they don't really.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, we don't value people based on performance. We do, obviously, but our main thing is the values. Because, like, if you meet the values in the
Right.
long term, you're gonna perform. But if you have somebody that is an amazing performance but doesn't fit the values, the issue, like, is gonna destroy the culture. So, and Alan always does the same thing. So Alan gets a glass of wine and a glass of water, puts a finger in the glass of wine, and lets 1 drop, okay, of wine fall in the glass of water. It changes the color, just 1 drop. So it's the same thing in an organization. You cannot allow that. Everybody needs to be aligned based on the values.
That's a really, really powerful analogy as well that we'll definitely use and test. And I'm hoping everyone is paying close attention to this masterclass on how to open up. And you mentioned that there's pushback, right? And it's logical and it's natural. So what can because we're talking about like from an owner's or management's perspective on how to put that on their teams. But what if you're like the employee? How can they actually find purpose in their jobs? If you're just not the manager, you're just an employee in the company, how can they actually push this change as well?
The first thing is they need to work on what they love, and that's something that I talk about in the book about. Uh, and I did the podcast last week actually, and the guy, it was beautiful. So Ryan is like, open your book at page 70 and read whatever you see. And it was crazy because I was saying that in our company, okay, I make sure that every employee does what they love 80 to 90% of the time, not 50-50. It needs to be 80 to 90%. And then, okay, like we're just going to get somebody else. We're going to hire another employee, another person to do the things that the other employee doesn't like doing. But I'd rather do this than you having 50% of the time enjoying and the other 50% being miserable.
Right.
So once you do that, you just like, you're happy and the energy is contagious. Like everybody's happy. They do what they love doing. So for me, that's the most important thing. It's just like find your passion and work on your passion. Once you find your passion, you find meaning, you find purpose, and you're happy. You feel happy.
And you mentioned that, so you talked about, of course, you've come a long way in almost 10 years. So congratulations on that. You've gone from 18 million to 151 million in the past few years. And you're talking about now the purpose and culture. So, but there's a lot of learnings and a lot of days in the last 10 years. So what outside of the financial rewards, like what are a couple of things that have really hit home with you, a couple of lessons that maybe you didn't expect to learn, but have learned in the process, and, something that surprised you?
Yeah. So the financial rewards, I don't even think about them because those are the least. Sometimes in front of when I talk in front of like business owners, I use it as an example because they
Sure.
open their eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like is my way to catch their attention because
Sure.
like so 10 years ago, okay, Alan was talking to me about these things and I felt that it was amazing, but I didn't believe it was possible. Okay. What I know is that everybody is a good person. Okay. There's no bad people. Okay. The thing is that we had bad experiences and we are who we are because of our bad experiences that we had in the past. But there's no bad people. Everybody wants to do good. Everybody feels great when you do something, when you help someone, right? So everyone wants to do it. But the problem is that as a business owner, you don't know another way to do it. You don't know how to do it. So that's why, sometimes I'm like, hey, listen, we did this and this is what happened financially, because then you empower them to see that there's another way to do it. But for me, the most important lesson was the following, no? I was actually giving a goal setting session to all the employees last week. And I was telling them, like, guys, before we start setting up goals, like you guys need to know what are your values.
Right.
If you like if I ask you like what are your 3 most important values, because you can have 50, but what are those 3 that are the most important to you? Because the risk that you have, and I shared that experience with them. One of the things that I wanted to have a lot of money. I wanted to be abundant. Okay, like for me, making it in life, it was having a lot of money in my pocket. At some point, okay, somebody walked in the showroom, met John, then he met me. And he was somebody from California that moved to Miami, and super successful business owner. He was the former CEO of Sequoia Capital, Jim Getz. He's super famous. He was 70 years in a row the #1 tech investor in the world. He was the lead investor in WhatsApp, so a billionaire. So he meets John, he meets me. He sees how different we are, because like even the way we dress, like I'm like with a sport jacket and John is like with ripped jeans, ripped shirt. So he's an artist. And he was like, do you guys like respect each other? I'm like, yeah, like, but that's 1 + 1 is 4 in our case. So he loved it. And he's like, I would love to invest in your company. And we were not looking for investors. So we called Alan, and Alan's like, oh my God, let's be careful. Like these venture capitalists sometimes are sharks. Sure. So we had a meeting, the 4 of us, and we loved Jim. So we accepted. He bought 25% of the company. And John and I, we were at the office with a glass of tequila waiting for that wire to hit. So we were refreshing every 10 minutes. Imagine, John and I, we didn't have $1. We were making like maybe $80,000 or $90,000 salary a year, and we didn't have 0 savings. We both were expecting, okay, so we both were,
Right.
so we were refreshing. The money hits the account, and we are, oh my God, I never had so much money in my bank account. So we do cheers, we celebrate. But I didn't feel anything. I was expecting the day that I have, financial stability, I'm gonna feel fireworks
Right.
inside of me. I'm gonna be so happy. I went home that night. I had dinner with my wife. I was not feeling anything.
You're like, no,
So I'm like, okay, so what happened? So next morning, we decided to share. I think it was like, so it was not a lot of money, okay? But for me at the time, it was a lot of money, but it was not that
Sure.
much money. But we decided to share. I think it was like 10% of the profits with the employees. So we get into this room, we call the employees based on the time that they had been working with us, not based on the position in the company. So we call the car wash guy that he had been with us since Lulavi. We call him, we give him a check. It was bigger than that his annual paycheck. So he starts like he was shocked. He was crying. And John and I we were holding our tears. Then Anna, we gave her another check, then another one.
Yeah,
So and seeing them cry, being shocked,
That's
they didn't know
fun.
what to say. When the last employee left the room, John and I we looked at each other and we started crying.
Of course. Yeah.
So that day, I realized I'm like the fireworks that I was waiting, like they didn't happen, but it just happened now. And I learned a lesson that it was not about getting the money, it was about giving it back, about sharing it. And that helped me find purpose. So last week when I was with my employees working on goals, I shared that story because I'm like, guys, if you don't define who you are today, okay, what values do you want to embrace? You're going to be working for 40, 50 years on something. Now you're going to get to that goal and it's not going to make you happy. And you're going to say, I've worked so hard for 40 years to get here.
And
Like I didn't do other things because I wanted this. So that's super important.
wow, that's a great example. And thank you very much for sharing. I mean, of course, you're a very open person and you can feel again benefits of doing these things face to face. You
Thank
can really feel the passion, feel the energy. I'm actually
Yeah.
holding my tears still. But so no, this is great. Thank you so much. What can we expect from you and We Are Curated? What's the next? What's the future looking like as we kind of wrap up this amazing interview?
So we have a plan, okay, like we're gonna keep growing, hopefully. Not hopefully, I know that the company is gonna keep growing. But we're just surrendering. We're like, like whatever needs to happen is gonna happen. What we know is what we want to inspire a lot of people. So we have our own YouTube channel where my business partner John, he's the face of the company, and we get so many messages like from people that are inspired, that they started businesses because of what John said or what we shared. Last week we did a podcast as well, John and me together. It wasn't my first time being on our company's podcast. And we got tons of messages, ton of people that want to work in Curated. So this is just so inspiring. So that's what we want to do. We want to
Keep doing that.
Yes,
Keep doing that.
and John, he went, that's his life, the cars. For me, now that I have proof that when you do this, like you can change people's lives and you can make money.
Yeah.
That I want
Probably a lot more money than you otherwise would.
a lot more. And in conscious capitalism, they track companies, that they are doing this, and it's incredible. They outperform the market. So I just want, for me personally, I want to share this with other entrepreneurs. So maybe I can inspire them to do business in another way, so they can change people's lives. That would be my goal, my dream.
Wow. I'm pretty sure you'll get there. And thank you once again for sharing your story with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it was very inspiring to hear. You're a great storyteller and definitely Spanish to your core. Very excited, I love the enthusiasm. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate it so much. And then before we wrap, I do want to ask one other question. So you are proving the business case. You have you said you use the figures to get business owners' attention, but it is a painful transition sometimes. So what are a couple first steps you would offer to business owners or C-suite or something like that are interested, but want to know kind of what steps to take to start infusing the purpose and values and better culture into their companies?
First of all, I would recommend them to buy the book from John Mackey, Conscious Capitalism. That's a fantastic.
It is.
Is a great way, to get into it. Second, I would tell them to join Conscious Capitalism, what the CEO Summit, and study that a little bit, talk to the people, see that energy. I would also recommend them to buy my book, Paid Forward,
Yes.
because
Of course.
that's
Of
another.
course.
We should have had a copy here so we could
Yeah.
show the cover.
Yeah, it's fine. No, but you were asking me before, no, why did I decide to write a book? The only reason that I decided to write a book is because I wanted to share that there was another way to do business, and
Yeah.
that's I when I was writing it, I actually was not writing a book. I was taking notes over a period of 7, 8 years from everything that Alan was telling me. On a trip to Bali, my brother lives in Bali. I got that from the notes. I put it in a Word file, and I just started cleaning it up. When I got to Bali, I had like 40 pages. So over a period of a year, I kept cleaning those 40 pages. And for Alan's birthday, we were in Germany in a meeting, and I gave it to him in the airport. I'm like, this is your birthday gift. And he opened it up and he saw that. And like, oh my God, but that was going to be a document for Alan,
Like a birthday gift.
get birthday gift for my employees that I was going to giving out for the employees. But I never thought of like doing an actual book. But like Alan started like telling everybody, then they called me and I was forced to do a book, not forced because I loved the experience of doing it, but I never thought about writing a book. And when I was writing those things, I felt this is common sense. That's stupid. This book is stupid. This is not a book.
Right.
Yes.
Well, the most powerful things are usually like the simple,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
know.
that's why that's some of the
Exactly.
things that I think I've gotten out of conscious capitalism and this community that we both belong to. It's just,
Exactly.
it's not hard.
No, and
It's very, well, I guess I'll take that back. It's very easy, but it's very complicated
Simple but hard. Yeah.
Yes, because opening up, that's the hardest part. I feel like it's up to us to open up and be okay being vulnerable.
Yes.
That is making this so complicated. But if you can get past that, it's pretty
easy.
simple theory.
It's easy. It's our egos.
But yeah,
Once we
it's the
remove,
ego. You're
it's the ego.
absolutely right.
Once you're capable of
That's
removing the ego,
absolutely
it's
right.
easy. But that's the most difficult part. And to do it in a group setting, it's even more difficult. That's why I believe that this thing that we're doing, the meditation and all this retreat,
Yeah, that helps.
helping so much because everybody's growing.
Well,
Yeah.
Jordi, thank you so much. It's been a really cool experience. Thank you once again for having me here at your office. We'll post some pictures. We'll post some of the notes and comments and some of the experience share that you had. So thank you so much. How can our listeners connect with you, learn a little bit more about you? And we are Curated.
So on Instagram, we are Curated, YouTube, Curated TV, and myself, like my book, Paid Forward, and then my Instagram, Jordi Ricart, or jordiricart.com, my website, and I have some information there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. This was so much fun. I'm sad I'm not there, but I get the energy from here. So thank you for leading the way in business and for being another case for conscious capitalism and certainly a case study for it. So thank you so much. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you being here. Hopefully you've learned something as well. And if you like more stories like these, then be sure to hit subscribe because we'll have another great conversation in 2 weeks. Thanks for your time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I appreciate it.